June 18, 2020, Frankfurt, Germany. The headquarters of Wirecard, a company worth $28 billion, goes completely silent. Not because of a merger, not because of a holiday, because $1.9 billion has just been declared missing. And the auditors, the banks, the regulators, nobody can find it. Not a single euro. That's the part they'll tell you. Here's what they won't. The money was never there to begin with. His name was Markus Braun. Austrian. Quiet. He wore black turtlenecks. He quoted Steve Jobs. He built what everyone called the German answer to Silicon Valley. And for 15 years, he convinced the most sophisticated financial minds in Europe that he was a genius. He wasn't. He was something far more dangerous. A man who understood that confidence is a currency, and he printed it without limit. The version you know might be wrong. Rewind to 1999. Braun joins a struggling payments startup in Munich. Nothing glamorous. Office furniture from a second-hand shop, 4 employees, coffee from a machine that didn't always work. He did not yet know that one day he would sit in a German prison cell, staring at the ceiling, waiting for a verdict that would define the most. Rest of his life, back then, he was just a man with a spreadsheet and an idea. Wirecard would process payments for websites, for merchants, for the borderline industries that bigger banks refused. Gambling sites, adult platforms, the clients nobody wanted. Braun took them all, and quietly, steadily, he turned that into a business that looked, from the outside, like a rocket ship. By 2018, Wirecard had replaced Commerzbank in Germany's DAX index, 30 of the most important companies in Europe. Braun stood on stage in a black turtleneck and said, "We are the future of financial technology." The crowd believed him. Here is the world Braun built, and why it worked. Wirecard operated across 3 continents. It had subsidiaries in Singapore, Dubai, the Philippines. It processed payments for thousands of merchants daily. The numbers were enormous. And that was the point. When a company is big enough, complicated enough, spread thin enough across enough jurisdictions, nobody can see the whole picture. That is not a bug. That is the architecture of a perfect crime. The rule inside the financial system was simple. If your auditor signs off, you're clean. Ernst & Young, one of the big 4 accounting firms in the world, signed off on Wirecard. Every year, for a decade. The institutional stamp of approval made questioning Braun feel not just wrong, it felt stupid. It felt like conspiracy thinking. A normal day at Wirecard headquarters looked like any other fintech office. Young analysts staring at monitors, pizza boxes at midnight, the smell of ambition and energy drinks, and underneath all of it, a number in a spreadsheet that didn't correspond to anything real. Then came the break. October 2019. The Financial Times publishes a report by journalist Dan McCrum. His claim, Wirecard's accounts in Asia show signs of round-tripping, money being sent out and sent back to inflate revenue figures. McCrum had been investigating for 2 years. He had sources inside the company. He had documents. Wirecard's response was immediate and brutal. They called it market manipulation. They hired private investigators. They filed criminal complaints against McCrum in Germany. The German financial regulator, BaFin, banned short selling of Wirecard stock, which meant the people betting Wirecard would fall were the ones treated as criminals. For a moment, Braun appeared to win, but one question wouldn't go away. Where exactly were the $1.9 billion held in trust accounts in the Philippines? 2 banks confirmed the accounts existed. Then, in June 2020, the Philippine bank said something strange. They had no record of those accounts. Ever. The investigation that followed was unlike anything in European financial history. German prosecutors, Singaporean police, and Interpol all moved simultaneously. What they found, or rather, what they couldn't find, was the money. The trustee accounts were fiction. The documents were forged. The revenue from the Asia-Pacific division, which made up the majority of Wirecard's profit growth, was largely fabricated. Dr. Pav Gill, a former compliance officer inside Wirecard's Singapore office, had tried to raise the alarm internally in 2018. He was ignored. He went to external lawyers. He was ignored again. He eventually became a whistleblower. At enormous personal cost. He lost his career. His colleagues stopped speaking to him. "Nobody wants to believe the building is on fire," he said, when everyone inside is still working. Markus Braun was arrested on June 22, 2020. He sat in a Munich courtroom and said he too was a victim, deceived by his own executives. His chief operating officer, Jan Marsalek, the real architect, prosecutors now believe, was gone. Fled 2 days before the collapse. Last confirmed location, Belarus. Suspected ties to Russian intelligence. Vanished completely, Marsalek. Remains one of Europe's most wanted fugitives. Meanwhile, 20,000 Wirecard employees lost their jobs. Ordinary investors, retirees, pension funds lost billions. BaFin, the regulator that had protected Wirecard, faced parliamentary investigations. Ernst & Young faced lawsuits across 3 countries. Here is what we know. Wirecard stole, or fabricated, nearly 2 billion euros over at least 5 years. The fraud touched regulators, auditors, banks, and governments. Markus Braun was convicted in 2024 and sentenced to over 15 years in prison. Here is what we do not know, where Jan Marsalek is right now. What governments, if any, protected him, whether the fraud was purely financial or whether it served intelligence purposes that go far deeper than a missing spreadsheet. And here is what cannot be denied. Somewhere in the machinery of the most trusted institutions in the world, a man in a black turtleneck stood up and said, "Believe me." And they did. All of them. For 15 years. The money is gone. The man who took it is still out there, and the system that let it happen is still running.